Welcome to the Whole Church Podcast.
Your favorite church unity podcast.
Probably.
If you want to hear from pastors,
Professors.
and everything in between,
Right, sure.
and, the occasional train talk.
Right, yeah. Have we got the podcast for you?
Welcome to the Whole Church Podcast. This is your host, Joshua, and your co-host, Magic Head. Sorry, type your ears on.
TJ. Right.
Yeah, so we start off the same way we always start off, by trying to convince you guys to comment on our iTunes and let us know what's going on, because we want to hear from you guys. Any feedback, especially, honestly, I prefer negative feedback. Rate us high, then give, sandwich it. But I need to know stuff that we can do better.
Yeah, give us 5 stars and then tell us we suck.
Give us 5 stars. Be like, yeah, it was great, except you could fix this. And then I can try and fix this. Because that's my ultimate goal, is to fix everything possible until this is the perfect podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have a really positive comment on iTunes from our last week's guest, Becky Walker. I assume that's who it is. It says, Becky Walker-Myler.
Yeah, that sounds like Becky Walker.
Yeah, it sounds like that to me, too.
Sounds like she's gonna Becky walk a mile in someone's shoes.
Yeah. She titled her comment, Cool Hanging Out. This is on iTunes. It said, I love the natural and awesome way this podcast flowed. It was so inspiring to be with you guys. You are doing an amazing job. Thankful for your passion for this podcast and trains. Blessed to talk about the importance of women in ministry. And then when we were with her, she mentioned that what was it? She said, sounds like this secular podcast.
Yeah.
Like it was like she said her daughter or somebody listens to a podcast that has nothing to do with church or anything. She's like, it sounded really professional like that. Which I guess is a good thing. We want this to be accessible to everyone in and outside the church, so we can witness to the whole world. Preach the gospel to everyone in the world. What is the Great Commission? Well, how's that go?
I don't know.
Something about bringing the gospel to the whole world. I'm bad at memorizing verses, but really good at knowing what they say.
That sounds like one of those has to be a lie.
I was like word for word, I'm bad at. But usually I can be like, oh yeah, Ephesians 5 is the one that talks about unity in the church and husbands and wives. I'm good at that. I'm just not good at word for word memorization. Anyway, so that was Becky Walker's comment. We would love to hear more comments from you guys, and also would you say more importantly?
Then commenting on the iTunes?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because sharing it allows more people to see it. As long as I'm the only one sharing on my social media, only the people I know will see the podcast. So, really appreciate if you guys would share so more people could see it. So, maybe we can get this thing kicked off and get more people on board for church unity and hopefully see better unity in the church, because that's sort of the goal.
Sort of.
Only kind of.
Yeah. The real goal is to become wildly wealthy.
For anyone who doesn't know, no one who does anything in the church is wildly wealthy unless you have like a mega church. And even that is questionable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did you want to tell them about the Patreon?
Please support us on Patreon. We've made some changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different tiers now.
Yeah, you've made a lot of changes that you didn't tell me about. So why don't you tell them about those?
Yeah, so there's 4 different tiers now. You could be a $1 member, which you would just get our reflections and the joy of supporting us. $3 members get everything, which is the daily devotionals, the reflections episodes, the Too Long Didn't Listen series where our guests summarize their podcast in 10 seconds or less. There's something else, right? Am I missing a thing?
Devotions? Did you say?
Yeah, I said devotions. Oh, and you get the podcast a day early. And, yeah. Then the next tier is $5.
Then 10.
I forgot what the name of it was. Oh, no. $3 is full access. $1 is membership. I think the $5 was like Members Plus or something. And then the $10 was Members Plus Plus. $5 you get all the same things as $3 get, but also personal letters from me and TJ. And then $10, you get the same thing as $5, but the satisfaction of knowing you supported us twice as much.
The best tier.
Yeah. You get to just have a lot of satisfaction. It's great.
It's like paying for Hulu, but not getting Hulu.
Not really anything. Yeah. Is that it? Is there anything else? Did you want to tell them about the is it called a sweepstakes? Would you call it a sweepstakes? More like a raffle.
Raffle? One of those things.
Do you want to tell them about that?
Well, technically, the deadline for that is the day this releases. So, support us by today.
I thought we were going to extend it to whenever Tim Coulter's podcast comes out.
Are we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's a big name. People listen to that.
Yeah. What is that?
First Tuesday in June? Question mark?
So very soon.
Yeah, pretty much the same date. It just give them more time to actually be able to hear about it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So.
Yeah. So
June,
with that said, we'll
something.
that's to get a Kindle Fire 7 with Francis Chan's Letters of the Church on it. If you guys want to support us on Patreon, the only deal with that is we do have it set on Patreon where it has to be the $3 or more to be entered in for that raffle. Yeah, the $1 just get the joy of supporting us. So, yeah. With that said, we're going to call back an old guest of the show, Wayne Parker. Wayne is a good friend and an associate pastor. Today's just going to kind of be like a review episode, kind of rehash everything we talked about, see what we've learned so far, and maybe what we can do with it, and get Wayne's take on it. Because although it was the second episode of the podcast, it was the first one recorded. It's kind of cool to have him back for that since we've recorded 12 episodes now. Wayne's back. Maybe we'll do it every 12. Every 3 months we'll get Wayne.
Yeah, good idea.
I don't know if he will. I hope he does. He's awesome. All right, let's call Wayne.
Yeah, it's time to get the story so far.
Hello.
Wayne Parker. This is Joshua Knoll and TJ at the Whole Church Podcast.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to the show again.
It's a pleasure to be back.
Yeah, we're just telling them how you were
Wayne,
technically the first guest, even though you were the second episode. We recorded with that episode first. So.
Oh, good times.
Oh yeah. Also, I don't know if anybody knew this, but TJ, he wasn't a co-host for the first few episodes, but he was there for the episode of Pastor Gary, so he was sort of there for the first episode.
I've been here the whole time.
He just wasn't speaking.
Yeah. But I wasn't there for your episode, Wayne.
Well, consider yourself blessed.
No,
I do.
It was great. I was blessed.
Well, I consider myself blessed now that I get to talk to him.
Oh, okay. Well, Wayne, we started with a new segment we'd like to start with, where we just have like an icebreaker question.
Okay.
So this one, it's sort of like a take on, the college essays where it's like, if you could go to any time and place, where would you go? It's sort of that, but instead of you, it's, if you could send Morgan Freeman to any time and place, where would it be, and why? And we'll take it first if it makes it easy on you.
Okay.
I'm curious what Tiberius Swan says to that.
Me too. We'll see what I say.
Yeah, I'm waiting on it.
No, you go first.
Oh, me? Yeah. Me first?
Yeah.
Man, any time and place, I want to say that I would send him to the Crusades, because A, that's one of my favorite times just in history, just in general, and B, I feel like his power of speech enables him to be more powerful if he's placed in a dominant or predominant area. Given that it was Israel, it's not as racy in that time area, so he could probably do more there than most places in history. Also, I just kind of think it'd be fun to see Morgan Freeman in the Crusades. It's mostly all. I want to see that movie. That's really what it is. I'm thinking a movie with Morgan Freeman in the Crusades would be great.
Wow.
If you send him back, though, he can't make a movie about the Crusades. You get that, right?
That's true. Maybe not. Maybe I don't do that. I'll send him to any time and place. I'll send him to the time and place that Kingdom of Heaven was recorded. Yeah, so it'll be instead now that movie features Orlando Bloom, Liam Neeson, and Morgan Freeman. Makes the movie a lot better. Which also is one of my favorite movies already. Just think I'd like it more with Morgan Freeman.
All right.
Yeah.
I think I would. I think I'd send Morgan Freeman to my funeral.
Oh God, I didn't even think about the future.
Yeah. So Morgan Freeman gets to speak at my funeral. Has to speak at my funeral.
Does the liturgy?
Yeah.
Tiberius Swan was. He'd probably say TJ.
Yeah, he would never hear Tiberius Swan.
He would.
No, he wouldn't.
I'd tell
Stop. All right.
All right, Wayne. Any time and place that you could send Morgan Freeman.
I would send him to the time of the plague.
Oh, no.
Oh, God. Poor Morgan Freeman.
Why?
Because I would like to honestly, I would just like to stand next to him and just listen to him narrate the everyday activities of the plague. I don't know. Listen, for all you out there listening, I'm a little dead inside and a little twisted from time to time, so excuse me in advance. And that's my only reasoning that I could actually. Let's just send him to the plague. I want to see what he has to say about it.
man. I feel like it would have been better if we would have just said, if you could listen to Morgan Freeman narrate anything in history. And one of my favorite Morgan Freeman clips is, there's a YouTube series called True Facts, and it does mostly true facts about animals, and it's just a funny biology series. And then one of them, only one, they decided to do a human. They picked Morgan Freeman, and it's just them saying really ridiculous things about Morgan Freeman.
Really true things about Morgan.
Yeah. Including the fact that penguins didn't exist until Morgan Freeman made that movie.
Yeah.
It was great. Oh, man. All right, so with that being said, we've recorded 12 episodes before this.
Wow.
In between yours and this one.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean 12 total before this one, including his.
Oh.
Yeah. This is episode 13.
Hmm.
Yeah. So we're really excited to have you back. That's 3 months, the Whole Church Podcast. We want to see if we learned anything that we think could make a significant difference and what we can actually do with it. So we're not just learning things and not doing anything. We want to see action behind it and how to do that.
Yeah, so we thought we'd call you, see what you think about these things, because it seems
You're a
like
man of action.
Yeah, best option.
And if nothing else, you could tell us some food recipes.
Yeah. You can host the
Food
first whole
recipes?
church dinner.
Yeah, you can host the first whole church dinner.
You know, first of all, let me just say this before I go any further. You know, in my cooking excursions, I have a tendency to take to take one ingredient and just see what I can do with all of it. And for the past month, I have been on puff pastry.
Ooh. I saw that.
Yeah,
We got asparagus on puff pastry.
Yeah, I was so intrigued by that. What were you doing in that?
Honestly, I thought to myself, you know, it would be nice just to create a little boat for them out of puff pastry and bake them. But the thing about it is
Nice.
that, you know, prior to actually putting them in the puff pastry, I had them soaking in a butter, garlic, Italian seasoning soak. And so they went into the puff pastry already seasoned, and then I brushed the edges with egg wash, and that bad boy puffed up real good. And
So
let me tell you what, it was. I almost got saved again.
Oh, so did you, like, cut it into squares and eat it, or
Yes.
pick up
yes.
the whole thing? Okay, that makes sense.
Do you think I could make a gravy boat out of puff pastry?
Absolutely.
Wallace, that's all.
I tell you what, if you can make it beforehand, then pour the gravy inside. That would probably work better.
Noted. All right. So, man, I'll just go ahead and get to the punch, I guess.
All right.
So we've talked to, obviously, you know what we talked about in your podcast. So I'll get to that. I'll get to that later. I actually had a good follow up question on that podcast. I was listening to it the other day.
Okay.
I'm gonna have him back. Let's ask him. But before we get to that, I just want to talk about. I had three big things I think we've learned about how to be more united as believers, and also 3 major themes I've noticed in the podcast so far.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I just want to talk about those. So, for the things we've learned, I think I've learned that the very first episode, we keep bringing that back, where Pastor Gary mentioned the closer we get to Jesus, the closer we all get to one another.
Mm-hmm.
So the more united we should be.
Yeah.
So I thought that was just a really good lesson. The only question I had with that, I've been thinking about, is the Bible also says to be at peace or to be united with everyone, those around us, not just those who believe in Jesus. So how does that apply in that kind of situation? Is it just 2 different topics?
Well, I'll be honest with you. You know, again, we have to go back and we have to look at the example of Jesus. You know, Jesus ministered to people from all walks of life, and he ministered to the farmers, to the rich, to the ones who were considered the ones from the wrong side of the railroad tracks. And I'll be honest with you. You know, yes, first of all, he never compromised his message. But before he even went into his message, it's almost as if you could see where he had attempted to find some sort of common ground with them. Because the Bible also says, how can 2 walk together unless they agree? So I'll be honest with you. You know, no matter where you are in life, you have to find common ground with somebody. Otherwise, it would be almost impossible to really speak with them. Now, I'll be honest with you. I have a lot of friends, and a good portion of them are not Christians.
He's just showing off that he's popular.
Yep.
Oh,
I
no.
understand. Yeah, you have a lot of friends. Yeah, great. I do too. All 2 of mine are great.
Hey, listen,
One.
all you need is one good one. Anything after that's a blessing. So I'll say I'm blessed, I guess. No. But a good chunk of them are not Christians. And if I could even take it a step further, especially in the South here, a lot of them, even though people are not Christians, they have knowledge that God exists. It's just, but these friends aren't they're not even in that area. I have a Muslim friend. I have a Buddhist friend. I even have a friend of mine that has dabbled in Wicca from time to time. But my thing is this, yeah. But my thing is this, instead of pushing them to the side, the fact of the matter is that is a living soul, and that somewhere on the inside they do bear the image of God, and it would please the Lord to have that image reconciled and elevated, if you would, to a place where that would be pleasing unto Him, ultimately leading to their salvation. So my thing is this, granted now let's take that idea and flip it on the other side. Now we also understand that, how can two walk together except they agree? Find common ground, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with laying boundaries in your friendship as well as in your conversation. There are some things that we will not talk about simply because we know ahead of time that that's a bomb waiting to go off. And honestly, I value your friendship more than I do being right or being wrong about something. And truth be told, I have had the privilege of leading a few of them to Christ, and it didn't come from me beating them over the head with, that's wrong, you're going to hell. But instead, it came from a life of, honestly, just loving them, literally loving them as Christ would love them.
So you have a question.
Common ground.
How does that apply to, you hear a lot in churches, especially if you're a kid and you have friends who aren't saved, or if you're dating someone who's not saved, it's the whole, can't be unequally yoked. Does that not apply anymore? Or are we just kind of like, no, it could be, like, you're an adult, so you can be as unequally yoked as you want? Or are they just using that verse wrong?
Well, I'll be honest with you. When it comes to being unequally yoked, I think that we need to work that out to its fullest potential. I'll be honest with you, man. There are some Christians that are just, that if suppose they do get married, that doesn't necessarily mean they're equally yoked.
Mm.
And so I'll be honest with you, I believe that we as the church, I believe we have abused that verse. And I believe that, we've used that as a cop-out for so many, especially parents, whenever their children are considering dating someone or are dating someone that they don't find acceptable. So yeah, they'll use that sort of like as a last-ditch effort. Well, the Bible says you're not supposed to be unequally yoked. Well, my thing is, when it comes to being unequally yoked, excuse me, like I said, there are some Christians that are more mature in the Lord than are others. But at the same time, you have to realize that when it comes to being yoked and being unequally yoked, that at the end of the day, you have to be able to walk hand in hand with each other, not pushing one or pulling the other. But here's the thing. If you're pushing one and pulling the other, yes, you're going in the same direction. Your goal is ultimately to be able to walk hand in hand with them.
So can you do that with non-believers?
Can you do that with non-believers?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I can tell you this. I can tell you this from personal experience.
Yeah.
If my toes are pointing west and my face is facing east, how in the world can we go in both directions at once?
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like you're really flexible to begin with.
Yeah. Well, Fatback can do that to you.
So we don't think the unequally yoked thing applies to just simple friendships with believer and non-believer. Then it's a little bit deeper than that.
I don't think so. I think whenever it comes to that verse being unequally yoked, I really feel like that was referring to the context of marriage and relationship.
Interesting. I would like to ask you more about that at some point, but
okay,
maybe not chase that rabbit hole today because we got a lot of. That's just point one. Man, I like getting Wayne's take on everything. This is just fun. So another thing we learned it from the episode called Youth Talk. I don't remember the number episode, but it was we recorded with Pastor Ryan Green. I think you know Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he was talking, and one of the cool.
I think he was episode 7.
Okay,
I want to say 7.
Maybe episode 7, possibly. But one thing we learned during that I thought was just really interesting. He talked about branding, which wasn't something, I really, one of my go-to thoughts of church unity, but he was like, how much cooler would it be if instead when we went to, a charity thing, instead of seeing a bunch of people with their church's logo on their shirt, if a bunch of churches went together and none of them had their church's logo. And when people asked, where are you from? And you're like, oh, I'm from this church, they're from that church. We're all just part of the church, all from different churches, just doing God's work. And it was like, man, I never even thought of that. We almost brand each other against each other. I mean, probably not on purpose, but yeah. Or do you think it's on purpose? I don't think it's on purpose.
Are you asking me?
And both of you.
Okay, you go first.
I don't think that self-branding is as much as we want recognition as it is we want to be,
Like, it looks almost like, how like McDonald's and Burger King brand themselves so that it's like, oh, go to ours instead of them.
Well, is that what they brand for? That's what they advertise for. But I don't think the branding itself is asking for recognition.
So the
outside of the
advertising's
fact
the
that they
problem,
use
not the
red and
branding.
yellow. Yeah. Well, if you are going out wearing your church shirts, I don't necessarily see a problem with that. It's an easy way to make sure everyone as a group is identifiable. Now, if you're going to an event with multiple churches, then that's kind of different, I think.
Wayne, what's your take?
Well, I think that at the end of the day, I think we subconsciously brand each other. I mean, because let's face it, in most social situations, we have a tendency to gravitate towards those whom we feel like we have most in common.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, but I will tell you this, but then that's where the spiritual maturity part is supposed to, is supposed to show itself, and you're supposed to realize that, at the end of the day, my branding only means so much. I'm not saying it means nothing, because it does mean something. But honestly, in a perfect situation like that, we would have to ask ourselves, okay, brands aside, what is our goal that we're pushing towards? So at this point, it's not a matter of branding, it's a matter of goal. What is our end goal? And how can we do this together? And, I've noticed that whenever you put an end goal in front of a group of diverse people, sometimes those labels have a tendency to fade.
Mm.
That's something we've talked about before on the testimonies talk. Me and my brother were actually talking about it, how a lot of times we think some of the division in the church is more because people in church aren't really doing anything. They're just kind of going to church and sitting around. And when you don't have anything to do, the human nature finds something to argue about.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if we went out and did God's work more, we'd argue less.
Oh, have mercy. But I don't know. I really don't know about that, because, the majority of the arguments that took place in the New Testament, I personally, I don't think they were just sitting around twiddling their thumbs, doing nothing. I think they were working. So if you think about it, the majority of their arguments popped up as probably in relation to the mode of work that they were doing.
Well,
that just creates different kinds of arguments.
Yeah, that's an example of what I call Socratic discourse. I think the proper term is Socratic disagreement.
Man, you get the best word of this cast. That's not
fair.
And
that's really a system of building up, not an opponent, but not necessarily friend either, but I'll say opponent. An opponent's argument. It's a way to help them strengthen what they think, and usually done between friends. But
iron sharpens iron kind of deal.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I'm going to challenge what you say until what you say is rock solid, or until you decide it's wrong.
That's actually why one of my closest friends is actually an agnostic. It's because originally, I was far right conservative Christian and just didn't want to hear anybody about drinking or tattoos or anything, and he was far left liberal and just hated the idea of Christians. He was actually attacked the idea of God. And now I think I've got to the point where I can see other perspectives. Still very Christian, obviously. I'm doing a podcast about it. And he's not even atheist anymore. He's more agnostic. And he's like, I'm not really sure. I've seen a lot from you and a lot of evidence. And I think we've both grown a lot from challenging each other. And that's why, keep them around. I like being challenged. It's great.
Everyone does it. Socrates just named it.
Smart guy.
Socrates.
I think it's
About to say,
honestly kind of stupid.
Didn't he also invent the soccer ball?
Did he?
I mean, I figured
Soccer-T-ball?
Socrates.
Probably, yeah. That's solid.
I want to
That's
have
evidence right there.
the cheesy branded Socrates.
Yes.
Socrates? Yeah, I'm sure there's a tea that's called that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I want to have it. It's somewhere.
That's probably definitely a thing.
Yeah.
It might just be like a tea house in. Please.
Yeah. And then more recently, I think that's episode 11. We were with Dr. Beck and Dr. Link, two of my old professors. We talked about tribalism. And that was something that was really interesting. He talked about how he's a Baptist preacher. And he talked about a lot of people who go to Baptist churches are Baptist because my parents are Baptist, or Baptist just because they've always been Baptist, and don't actually even know what the Baptist church stands for, or what all happened to get them where they are. And I realized, we definitely see some of that in our church too. There's a lot of people I feel like have no idea what the statement of faith is for Church of God of Prophecy or Church of God, and they're just kind of like, yeah, I do this because that's what we do. That's what my family does. And it's like, that's not Christianity. That's almost idol worship of a tribe, or idol worship of just what you've always done.
Tribal worship.
I thought that was really an interesting perspective, because I can see that.
You know, I'll tell you this, and and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus for who may be watching, but you know, there are groups of individuals, especially, I guess you could say, in the Church of God. I don't know, they may be all over the place, but you know, whenever they're mingling amongst other believers, you know, they won't ask, you know, what denomination are you a part of? They'll ask, what camp are you a part of?
Camp Agape.
And I'm Camp Agape.
That's where I think all three of us met each other.
Yeah.
It's the Church of God of Prophecy campus.
Camp Agape, man, those were good times.
Anyway.
I can still, every now and then when I think about Camp Agape, I can close my eyes, and if I sniff hard enough, I can catch the whiff of chicken.
Yeah, not the good whiff of chicken either, for those of you who don't know.
We've talked about Camp Agape on the podcast before, too, with Mandy McLaughlin. She's the
and Chris Galloway.
Right now. Yeah.
And Ryan Green.
Yeah. And Ryan Green.
We talk about it a lot.
Yeah, we like camp. But, it probably has its problems, too. There's some stuff that I maybe don't 100% agree with. Mm-hmm. We're all pretty united once we're there.
So
different camps.
Yeah, you're talking about different camps and tribalism.
Yes, different camps, different tribes. But my thing is, you know, their camps also, they also refer to not just like Baptist, Pentecostal, or Church of God, or Togoth, whatever, but you know, they will even go as far as, you know, whenever they're referring to camp, you know, are you of the Calvinist camp? Are you of the Arminian camp? You know, and so I'm thinking to myself, you know, and again, you know, I understand that those arguments have their place, and, you know, they have their points, and honestly, I think both sides are beneficial to the body. But, you know, right away, whenever you go into a situation and you're automatically asking, you know, what camp are you a part of, you have an ulterior motive. And in my opinion, you know, I really don't think fellowship and advancing the kingdom of God is anywhere in your vocabulary. I think you're just, oh Lord, I feel like, you know, speaking of Socrates, I believe that if I'm not careful, I could go into an ad hominem, which is the last thing I want to do.
That is,
you know,
that might be your word.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what?
I looked it up. Socrates Tea House is a thing in Detroit.
I want to go.
Yeah.
Let's go to Detroit.
I'm down, honestly. I have a friend from Michigan, and he said it's great.
But yeah, getting back to my point, you know, I don't want to go into an ad hominem, which is basically an insult on the individual's character or individual's character. But, you know, at some point or another, we really have to wake up and realize that, you know, the idea of camps and the idea of persuasions and the ideas of theological teachings, they have their place. But as far as in the general population of church mingling and fellowship, at the end of the day, I have the kingdom of God to advance here. And as far as I'm concerned, what camp you're a part of plays very little into it. So tribes, camps.
It's very
honestly,
church
I'm
unity
looking.
anyway.
Yes, I honestly, some of my favorite services were community services, where a group of churches from all kinds of backgrounds, they would come together at Christmas or at Thanksgiving, and they would worship together. And the thing about it is that if you find the parishioners of the Baptist church and the Presbyterian church, the Episcopal church, the Pentecostal church, and any other church that I missed, honestly, if you ever watch them intermingling with one another, they're not concerned with whether you are a Calvinist or whether you're an Arminian. They're honestly not concerned. And I have seen more friendships birthed out of those kind of services when it comes to people from different tribes and different camps. I have seen more friendships birthed out of that than I believe I have anything else.
So maybe one of the most practical things we could do is encourage our leadership to have more of those services.
I'm down.
Mm-hmm. Me too. That sounds like fun. I think it'd be I like meeting new people anyway. Or we were actually talking about on the way here how I just like the idea of meeting people from almost like they're from other worlds. I remember when as a kid I watched Lord of the Rings a lot, and then when I found out that's just New Zealand, I was like, man, yeah, I'd love to meet someone from New Zealand. They could tell me all about what New Zealand's actually like, or all the other places on Earth. It's like, honestly, there's so many other worlds, but they're all on Earth. And it's, we just get to know more people. We could learn so much.
People don't realize how diverse Earth is when they've only lived within the same 100-mile radius for their whole life.
Well, and the more I think about it, and I'm a nerd, so I think about it more from a movie perspective. I'm like, man, all these movies that are filmed from other worlds, most of them are just filmed on Earth in different places.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a cool thing.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think people realize how diverse their own state can be.
Right.
Right, yeah. Oh, I did the AT with my brother, or for not the whole AT, obviously, we did 15 miles or something. But we, just being out there and meeting, we met a bunch of people from France and Germany and just crazy people who've been hiking the whole thing, and it was like a different world. And that's, 2 hours from us? 2.5 hours, maybe.
Yeah, barely.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's insane. And
you can go just in, kind of the lower state and not see a house for miles, just fields.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
So, talking about diversity and just everybody from other churches getting along, I wanted to read some of my favorite Bible Unity Bible verses.
Bible Unity Bible verses.
Bible Unity Bible verses. Church Unity Bible verses. That's what I meant.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. It's 1 John chapter 4. I'll start in verse 7. I'm probably going to skip around a little bit just to get to the key points. It says, Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God, and everyone knows who loves is born of God. It knows God. The one who does not love does not know God, for God is love. And he goes on and he says, in this is love, that we not loved God, but that he loved us. And, you keep going, and I think verse 17, it says, By this love is perfected with us, so that we may have confidence in the day of judgment. And skipping ahead a little bit further, he says, There's no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves punishment, and the one who fears is not perfected in love. We love because he first loved us. That verse right there is actually, my fiance got a little thing to go on the wall for whenever we get a house together coming the next year. And that's just a beautiful verse. We love because he first loved us. And then it says, if someone says, I love God and hates his brother, he is a liar. For the one who does not love his brother, whom he has seen, cannot love God, whom he has not seen. And this commandment we have from him, that the one who loves God should love his brother also. If you say you love God, you have to have church unity. It's basically what it's saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's our aim. Honestly, I feel like 1 John 4 is kind of the heart of our mission here. That's, as long as we reflect on things, I always want to go back to the Bible when we reflect on what we're doing and why we're doing it. And that just really encourages me that it's so clear in the Bible that to be a Christian, you should be pursuing unity.
Mm-hmm. It's not very... Mm-hmm. No one ever broadcasts the unity part of being a Christian. At least not in your regular Sunday service.
And it's crazy because I don't think that's usually what the world thinks of when they think of church, which the Bible says it should be. You should be known from your love from one another. And we don't see it, but I think we can see it. Jesus prayed for it, and thus I think it's a possibility. Wayne?
I would agree with that. I would totally agree with that. We're doing we're doing a series on stewardship at my church, and I am I have the privilege of teaching that. And I made the statement not too long ago, and I actually brought faith and works into it out of James.
Nice.
You know, where he said, you know, it's, you know, how basically, how can you say to your brother who was hungry, be filled in the name of Jesus, and not give them anything to eat? So at the end of the day, man, you know, and like I told the people in the series, and at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, after we have prayed our prayers, and after we have had faith that the Lord will do, I said, before we, you know, benedict our prayer or even conclude our prayer, I said, we need to ask the Lord, now, Lord, am I the answer to this person's prayer? Is there something I can do to influence the answer to this prayer? So I don't know where I was going with that because I got caught up in that. But as far as love is concerned, and as far as unity is concerned, at the end of the day, we can be wishful thinkers of unity, but we honestly have to ask ourselves, what can I do? And we have to. Go ahead.
What do you think we can do?
Well, I can tell you. I can only tell you what I'm doing.
All right.
I'm being intentional. I am being intentional about putting myself in the company of others who do not think the way I do.
And the takeaway for this podcast is hashtag be like Wayne, or what would Wayne do?
No.
WWWD.
Let's try to be like Jesus. Let's try to be like Jesus on this one. But but again, you asked me, what do I think we can do? I can only tell you what I do. I can't tell you what I think we should do. But like I said, I'm intentional about putting myself in the company of people who don't think like me. I try my best to be intentional with putting myself in the company of people who don't have the same theological persuasion that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, a persuasion is a persuasion. At the end of the day, an argument is just an argument. But the person that issued the argument is still a person. And that person still needs to be loved. That person still needs to know that they have brothers and sisters in Christ who have their back regardless of what they believe as far as the faith is concerned. Because, again, my pastor, I love him to death, and he said something that I found to be true. At the end of the day, people, they may not remember what you said to them, but they will always remember how you made them feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's powerful. Man, I feel like you could almost do an altar call after that.
Yeah, let's
start to say every head bowed, every eye closed.
Man, but before we do our altar call, you think you could do a speed round with me? So we had 3 themes we've gone through that I've noticed throughout the podcast. So I'm just going to read each one out and get your take on them very quickly. If you could do it in like a sentence per theme.
Okay.
Oh man, this is challenge round time. All right. So one thing that we've been doing recently is going to continue next week. We recorded a podcast with Marie Proctor and Dolores Matthews. Is women pastors, yay or nay? Wayne Parker, what's your take?
Yay.
Perfect.
Nice. Okay, oh man. Okay, speaking in tongues has come up a few times about whether or not it's done orderly in the church or not, and how it should be done. And I don't think we've had anyone deny its existence yet, which is interesting. But we have talked, a lot about the order of it and whether it's done properly. What's your take on that one?
I think that we as Pentecostals need to step back and we need to really, really put on our magnifying glasses and examine the Corinthian epistle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Specifically, I guess you're on chapters 14 through 16, which we've talked about before. I think everyone should take the time to read that. With
chapter 13, because you can't skip those two. The chapter 13, the love chapter, bridges those together, and that's honestly, Josh, that would be an amazing podcast for another day.
I'm thinking 12 through
Good
14,
idea.
Not 14 through 16. Yeah, I'm thinking 12 through 14, because 12 talks about opens up all of the gifts of the Spirit. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Institutional church is a theme that's come up a couple times, mainly because once we had a guest, PD, his solution to church unity was to just destroy the entire institution. And of course, we made jokes about that before, and other people talked about how we could do the institution better. What is Wayne Parker's take on institutional church? Tear it down? No, I'm just kidding. But what is your take about the institution?
They have their benefits. They also have their cons. It all depends on which side of the tracks you're looking at it.
Yep.
Safe answer.
Yeah, very well said.
Wayne doesn't want to tell us he
Quickly
wants
said.
to tear down the church.
Yeah, he's trying to safely say, I can't say it, but I would tear it down too, PD.
Okay, then. Let me make my answer more pointed then.
Oh, this is fun.
Okay.
This is fun. This got fun quick.
When it comes to the institutional church, I think is honestly at the end of the day, it is a question of relevance.
And that's something to think on.
It is a question of relevance. The institution was born out of relevance. The question are, where are we today as far as relevance is concerned and its use?
I think that's something we can just let people think on.
That's excellent.
Yeah, that's good. It's fun. I have a lot of books on this particular topic, just from both sides. I think the one that takes both sides of it, like shows both sides of the argument really well, is Letter to Church from Francis Chan, which is part of our giveaway. And that's part of why it's part of our giveaway. He's just really real about the condition of the church. It's a good book. Okay. So we went through those themes pretty quickly, which is impressive. My question about the last time you were on the podcast. You were saying narcissism is what got in our way of church unity. But follow-up question, which you sort of, I think, already kind of touched on, was, doesn't it still start with me? Like, how to solve it? And as soon as I think that way, aren't I being narcissistic again? How do I get around that problem? Like, there seems to be a paradox here.
Okay. Well, my thing is, when it comes to narcissism is self-serving. What can I do to have this benefit me?
Okay.
When it comes to church unity, instead of saying, what can it do to benefit me, you turn it around and say, what can I do to benefit them?
So you still can focus on self, but as long as it's for the purpose of the whole?
Absolutely. I mean,
awesome.
because at the end of the day, without the single individual, you have no ecclesia.
He has so many good words.
Excellent.
God, that's powerful. So you kind of already touched on the application, what we can do. You said you can't tell us what we can do, but you said what you have been doing is just being intentional about making those friendships and kind of bridging the gap with your relationships.
Absolutely.
If more people did that, prophesy about what would happen. Tell us exactly what the future is. No, but what more people did that, what would it look like? What do you think our churches would look more like? Would it change anything?
I would tell you this. I think if we were to actually focus on doing that more, then we would spend less time fighting inward, and we would actually spend more time addressing the political and cultural landscape of today.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll be honest with you, I understand that the unbelieving world is going to be the unbelieving world. But if you think about it, the purpose of the body of Christ is to be the physical manifestation of what Jesus Christ was to the people of the earth. And the reason that there have been a lot of these political issues that have escalated to the point they have is because the church has been too busy arguing inwardly instead of being the authoritative voice in the land that they used to be. So if we were to be more intentional about bridging out and reaching out to our brethren and our sister who are not of our own camp or even tribe, and we would honestly begin to find our common ground and our own commonality, I promise you, we would honestly be exactly what Christ called the church to be. Again, it goes back to, we can pray for these political issues all day long. We can pray for these cultural issues all day long. But at some point or another, we have to get up from praying, and we literally have to start attempting to be the answer with the help of Christ.
Man, I really feel like you could have ended that with, and if we do that, we will see America be great again. Vote Wayne Parker 2020.
Not hardly. That's a headache I do not want.
Yeah, I don't think you can steal that slogan anyway.
But I still vote for him. Oh man, that's good though. That's powerful, and I guess it does come back to the church wants its influence. The church has to kind of fix it. So, I mean, that's the stereotypical superhero or, epic story is the hero or the protagonist always comes to a point where he's battling so much with himself that it's like, is he really being effective as a hero anymore? And I think the church has hit that point where are we still being effective in the world?
Well, and here's the thing. I'm glad you brought that up because, and again, pardon the deviation, but suppose we do keep the comparison between the hero, the epic, and the church today. You two seem to be scholars. Let me ask you a question. What is the number one trait that caused the failure of every hero in every epic? Hubris.
Yeah.
Hubris or pride. Arrogance. And it's funny because, for the people who wrote the epics, that had no concept of what we would consider God, even in their stories, they showed the error of humanity. And so, honestly, if we think about it, we put the epic aside for a moment and we flip over into the Holy Scriptures, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit goes before a fall.
Right.
So, honestly, let me speak to the church for a moment. Swallow your pride. We have bigger fish to fry.
Man. So, seems like we've come to a impasse. Impasse? Is that the right word? What's the word?
I don't know what you're trying to say.
What is impasse? Impasse might be the word. But it's, so we're either at the point where the church has to choose to swallow its pride and get back to being actually influential in the world again, or accept the fact that without unity, our relevance is just going to kind of die out.
Absolutely.
There we have it. That was a lot more powerful than I expected this to be. And that's not even true. I was like, man, as soon as we get Wayne, I'm going to be like, yeah, it's a review episode, but then it's going to turn into like I'm going to have to go build an altar in my office real quick kind of thing so I can stop and pray. Oh, man. It's great having you, Wayne. And the last thing we do is what we call our God moment of the week. And it's just something that, whether it's something God challenged you or blessed you with, or something you've learned from the Bible, or anything God related, your God moment of the week. Yeah. So we like to go first because a lot of times TJ's is just this podcast, this big cup, and that, and a lot of time mine's stuff like I saw a pointy building.
So are you gonna go first?
Do you want me to go first? Or you want to go first?
You should go first.
I'll go first. So we recorded with Marie and Dolores, which is next week's episode. We already recorded that. And I realized that we recorded an episode for them, and I was talking about how a lot of times young men don't have a lot of opportunities in the church and that kind of stuff. And I realized, as much as I do think a lot of that's true, I haven't actually had a huge impact from that. Just because I'm blessed to be at a great church where my pastor has given me chances to speak and all kinds of stuff. And I was thinking about how my dad today, he helped out with some of my financial situation. He's given us a gift card for groceries, all kind of just great stuff. And the more I think about it, I was reflecting back on our website because for the longest time I thought it was doing awful, and I was like, man, how come it's so bad? And I keep trying to make it better and better. And then I got challenged once on something I said for the website, and I had to take it down. And I was showing numbers and trying to explain to people why I word things sometimes the way I do is because it translates in different languages and all this stuff. And it was at that point that it's the first time I really reflected on the numbers for the site, which I won't say because I don't really care about the numbers. But it was as much as I thought I wasn't impacting or doing anything, it was just, I'm of the mindset that things can always be better. And sometimes I look so much on how things can be better that I forget that God's blessed me so much now. So it's like the two-part. One, thanks to God for blessing me so much. And also, it's a challenge to, even though I need to keep finding ways to make things better, also to step back every now and then and just appreciate what I have. So,
all right, that's
awesome.
So, Tiberius.
So I'm gonna say my God moment also has to do with finances. It was just God always provides in odd ways sometimes, and to record Marie and Dolores' podcast, we had to go to Batesburg, which is not close, really. Closer than we've gone, sure, but not close. And I think at this point it was 12 days since our last paycheck. So there was not a lot of money.
Like none.
Yeah. And it was just, for the past couple months, I've had like $7 in my Venmo account. Just because I can't really use that money for anything. But apparently Joshua can. So.
We were able to get gas from the $7 you had for like months.
So the $7 I've been keeping in my Venmo account because I can't really do anything with it allowed us to get back home.
Which was crazy because we did kind of go out in faith. We were like, yeah, we just go there. Somehow we'll end up with food and gas.
Yeah.
And then we did.
So Marie and Dolores had pizza, and I had $7 that
you forgot.
I couldn't use, but he could. So, God provides in odd ways sometimes.
What's that? Jehovah Jireh, the Lord provides. Is that? I know Wayne could correct me.
So the Lord that provides.
Yeah, I figured Wayne could correct me if I was wrong. I thought that was it. It's a good name.
Jehovah Jireh.
All right, Wayne, take us home. What's your God moment of the week?
About Sunday morning, which was yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, previously that Saturday, I was honestly having trouble sleeping, so I stayed up to the wee hours of Sunday morning, and it was about 2:00, and I was sitting outside on my patio with a cup of coffee and my Bible open. And I've been in the Gospel of John for the past 6 months. I can't explain it. It's like once I get through with it, I had to start back over again. I feel like I'm in there for something. Yeah. And I was sitting there, and I've had maybe a few moments like this in my life, but this one was absolutely, without a doubt, real. As I was reading the scripture, it became clear to me. I mean, I can't explain it. It just became absolutely clear to me. At some point or another, I wasn't doing a good Pentecostal prayer, where I was hacking up along and trying my best to preach the walls down or anything. While I was in the scriptures, I stopped for a moment. I needed the Lord to help me understand something. I was praying, and I was honestly afraid to open my eyes because it was one of those rare moments when I knew that I was in the presence of the Lord.
Wow. Very literal God moment.
And very literal God moment. I was honestly, I knew, granted, I know by faith that I'm not alone. But at 2:00 in the morning, it became very clear. I was not alone. And I wasn't just in the presence of anybody. I was literally in the presence of the Lord, and I was fearful. Not in the, oh my goodness, I'm going to die kind of way, but reverent. I was honestly afraid to open my eyes because I had no idea what I was getting ready to see.
That's a lot more eventful than my Sunday at 2 a.m.
Yeah, God bless me with sleep.
Not me.
That is a blessing.
Man, that's powerful stuff. But we've actually decided for you that every 3 months we're just going to do this again.
Yeah. Thanks for agreeing.
Yeah. Thanks in advance. Man, Wayne, it's always great to have you on. We really, really appreciate your time.
It is a pleasure and an honor to be on this podcast. Thank you guys so much.
No problem.
We love you, man.
If you want to come on sooner than
you just let us know. We'll let you on anytime.
September. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, man. Hey, God bless.
Blessings. Take care, guys.
You too.
All right, and finally, you want to walk them through what they need to do to support us and help us on everything?
Sure. Please, if you're listening and you haven't yet, make sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and
Facebook, Instagram. And if you do follow us on that and you want to comment just on there, we read those too.
Yeah, we can read feedback from any platform.
We just love feedback. If you go to my window and shout it at me, if I hear it, I'll probably quote you.
Yeah, we'll write it down real quick.
I'll definitely quote you. Be like, someone went to my window and said that. I think it'd be hilarious.
And please leave a comment on iTunes, Google Play.
Yeah, all that stuff. And then, of course, the Patreon. We still have that giveaway until the Tim Coulter episode, which first Tuesday in June, whatever date that might be. Y'all do that, and you get a chance to win a Fire 7 with Francis Chan's Letters to the Church. Also, just get the joy of supporting us. There's a lot that we need a new mic, we need a new notebook.
Yeah. I've heard it makes people feel great when they give us money.
Yeah. Also, software to record better would be good. There's just a lot of stuff that goes into this that it's hard to do when you work a job at a fast food place. But y'all support means the world to us. And we love everyone who does support us and everyone who doesn't. We just love everyone who follows us. Thank you guys.
Please, if you have a God moment of the week, email it to us. We'll read it on the podcast.
Yeah, it's thewholechurch@gmail.com. Not the Whole Church Podcast, but just thewholechurch@gmail.com.
Right. And future guests. Who are some future guests?
Next
Joshua?
week's the recording we already did with Marie Proctor and Dolores Matthews.
Yeah, Matthew Dolores.
But they have their own podcast. It's the Pastors of a Dying Church, and we're going to be on that next week as well. So that's fantastic. It just started this week. The first episode will air on Wednesday. We're really excited about them and what all they're doing. We're also going to have the pastor of Team Church, Kenny Hibbard, will be on in the next month. And of course, Tim Coulter is coming up. That's the first episode that's going to come out in June. And he's the general presbyter for the Church of God of Prophecy in North America.
So we've got Phil Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, Phil Smith
and
Brother Baker.
Yeah.
Dr.
And Dr. Brother Baker. And, at the end of the summer, Donald
Baker.
Whitney. So excited about that. He's a great author, one of my favorites. And of course, at the end of season 1,
Francis Chan.
Yeah, he just doesn't know it yet. I thank you guys for listening. Goodbye.